I want to talk about my experience with bipolar disorder. It started out when I was 17. I had never been drunk, and I drank with my stepbrothers for 3 days straight. And I smoked some weed too with them, and then we did some other drugs. I'm not sure what they were. I'm pretty sure I did other drugs because it definitely had some strange effects on me. So during that time, I'd been drinking pretty much constantly. So this was all a new experience for me. So when I was hanging out with them, um, they they had beaten up on me, or one of them did particularly, and um, I had bruises all over my body, and they tied me up with telephone cord. They tied my hands and feet behind my back. So um, and they cleaned out my bank account and my sister's bank account. So they to buy more drugs, I'm guessing, and alcohol. So um, after that time, I started having weird thoughts and became delusional and and that kind of thing. So after a couple of months, it was about the beginning of the school year, and I went to the mental hospital. So I was there from, I think it was September of '89 up until February of '90. So I was there 4.5 months anyway. And back then, this was in '89, so they would keep people longer than they do now. A typical stay at a hospital now is, I think, about a week and a half to 2 weeks on average. So since that time, I've had several hospitalizations, and I, I do okay overall now. Most of my depression that I have now is situational. It was because of a breakup I had with my daughter's mother, and that still gets to me, and it's been years since then. But so it's pretty much situational depression. I don't think it's the other form, but so and it's pretty rare these days that I become manic. I know when I was younger I'd become manic, and I think with age I've backed off on the symptoms of mania. So I'm 45 now. So uh, when I would have mania, I'd talk faster and have racing thoughts, and I was excitable. Sometimes I would stay up. I think I'd stay up for a day or two at a time, a couple days at a time, maybe sometimes. So that's typical of someone with mania. They have a lot of extra energy and tend to have racing thoughts. Now it seems that when I have um, symptoms, it's in the form of anxiety and paranoia. So, which mania is more fun. Just feeling happy and having high energy is is fun, and being paranoid and afraid is not fun at all. You would think that people were out to get me, and when I was working, I would quit jobs because I thought that people could pick up on my paranoia and knew I was paranoid. So I thought they'd be talking about me, and I'd become really uncomfortable, and I would quit jobs, and into my 20s, and my dad would become frustrated with me because I'd quit jobs so often, and then I just described to him what it felt like, paranoia, in a way I think he could understand. So I explained it that what would happen is it was like living in a nightmare, a waking nightmare, and I couldn't escape it. So after I described it to him that way and explained it, it seemed that he understood and wasn't so frustrated anymore because he knew I was suffering and afraid and didn't really know what was going on. And when I'm paranoid, which I think is often the case for most people, no one could convince me that what was going on wasn't real. So there was, there was just no way to talk me out of it. It's kind of like trying to talk to a drunk person. You just can't do it because they're not, I just wasn't rational. And you couldn't rationalize things with me because I just didn't believe them. And I was so caught up in my own, sometimes, paranoid thinking or delusional thinking sometimes that, you couldn't talk me out of it. To me, that was real. And it was my reality. That's what was really going on in my head. So, for someone to try to convince me otherwise, it just didn't work. So, so now, I try to do things that will help me. I was meditating, and it would be a good idea for me to get back to that because one day I was having symptoms, and I meditated for a few days, and it seemed like after just a few days, it made a big difference, and I was feeling better. So it did reduce the symptoms. So, now my life's okay. I mean, I get out, I socialize as much as I can. There's a place in the town next to where I live called the Recovery Institute, and they have like groups and activities for people with mental illnesses, and it's a nice place to go and spend the day and be around other people that have mental illnesses of various types. But some people get it in their head that people with mental illness are crazy all the time and they're just out of their minds, and that's just not the reality. Most people with mental illness are just like anybody else the majority of the time. If they're taking their meds and getting therapy and things like that, or at the very least taking their meds, the symptoms aren't there. So we can